Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Team Inkfinity podcast where we talk everything Lorcana. I'm Zach, and with me today is Daniel. I don't know why I'm introducing you. I should let you do it yourself.
And I'm Daniel.
thanks for joining us again this week. Yeah, it's been a little bit of a rough couple of recording weeks. I think if you stuck with us through last week's episode, then I really appreciate you, and you're definitely a true fan because the audio was a little sketchy to say the least, but we recorded that going right into the Big CCS tournament, and I was like debating on if we should like keep it going or not. And then Zane, the one of the guests of the episode, ended up third after the first day of Swiss, and I was like, well, we have to have him. We have to have this episode now. I don't want to like not have an episode, especially with him being the guest. So if you were champs and powered through, appreciate it. I guess that's all I'm trying to say.
So we'll try to one up the echoing on this episode for sure.
No, we're trying to one up the echoing by getting rid of the echoing, which I think we've successfully accomplished. But
I think there's a rumor going around that James and Zane are robots after last week's episode.
I mean that's very feasible too. But yeah, I guess on that same note, I posted in our Discord and I think on socials too that we were kind of working on like the next iteration of content for the team, and I was pretty excited about it. And so, as bad as the echoing was in the podcast episode, we recorded an entire I did 20 minutes of checks with everybody that was joined because it was a big group, not just one guest or two guests. It was a massive group. Did like all the checks in the world, and then we recorded the episode. Was super happy, and I went to look at it afterwards, and it was hot garbage. And so Daniel was a part of that. And so sorry, Daniel, for the last recording. Hopefully this one's a lot better. But yeah, that's the unfortunate recording situations we've had.
It's okay. We live and learn, and no one will ever hear the long lost episode of the first inaugural On the Play.
No, and speaking of, here we go. So quick tease for anybody that is interested in like what other content streams we're looking to go down. Here's the logo for the new show that we're going to be starting. So that's the spoiler we're going to give this week. It's not it will probably be on the podcast and like distributed on the audio versions as well, but it's very much a new show in Lorcana space and very different, I think, from what's been out there. And it was Daniel's idea, and super excited about it.
Yeah, we want to give like a sneak peek of like what the style of the show is.
Yeah, well, I mean, probably should. Why not? You're better at that than I am. You go for it.
Yeah, I mean, like I'm sure like many listeners and viewers, like just try to absorb as much Lorcana content as possible. But I find like oftentimes I kind of want to just like more, and so I'm trying to think through like different things that like I've watched over the years in other fields, not just like TCGs, and so it's kind of I'd say like a fairly subjective game show is how I would describe it, and so very very fun debate style where you can debate anything, and there's topics that get brought up and kind of goes around each of the participants on the show, and people will debate one thing or the other, and so I try to be funny, but don't know if that always works out in my favor. One thing we did learn on our first podcast that no one will ever hear is that less talking is actually a little bit more beneficial for you. So I've got to use that when we go live for the real one now.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun. It's gonna be competitive. There's gonna be flashes of everything. It's gonna be just really fun topics, really subjective topics. A few competitive topics. It's not just very geared towards one audience. Hopefully everybody has or finds, I guess, something special with the show to find it fun and interesting at least. So that's what's to come. Hopefully here very shortly when we can all get together and record another episode and me not completely and utterly butcher it. So
I'm looking forward to a second chance of redemption.
no spoilers. Okay, so I threw this one on you, but right before we started, so I hope you have a good one. But we historically do card of the week, and I've been throwing that at the guests now. So what card from the new set do you want to talk about that is hot on your mind?
Oh man, I really want to do the one that I want and not necessarily one that people might want, but we're going to go with it because
Yeah, do it. I mean, there's no rules here. You can do whatever you want.
have I don't think you haven't done Tramp yet, have you?
No, we haven't. That's a
Yep.
perfect one.
So let's do Tramp.
Yeah.
The seven drop.
The cheat out other characters one.
The free one, really.
Yeah. So I got it pulled up. Yeah. So the Tramp, the Street Smart Dog, the 7 cost, Inkable, 2/6, stat line, quest for 2, and then his abilities, which I'll be honest, I'm still learning a lot of these new different play styles, and at first didn't really understand it, but now that I've seen a couple of the decks built around it, I really start to get it. And so his first ability says, for each character you have in play, you pay 1 less ink to play this character. So you can cheat him out, a lot earlier than 7 because, in a lemon lime aggro deck, then you're gonna, be pretty low to the ground and getting characters on the board. And then his second ability says, when you play this character, you may draw a card for each other character you have in play, then choose and discard that many cards. And so again, it on the surface, it's like, okay, I mean, you're basically just milling through yourself until you get an option to find, maybe 1 or 2 specific cards that you want. But that's definitely just the surface level. And so if you want to give everyone an understanding of why that's like really powerful, then yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so first off, dual colors or dual ink colors in like this set. I think this is a perfect showcase of like what that unlocks. Just like imagine having like this is like an amber only card that you can like pair with steel and like do all sorts of kind of crazy things. And so I think this kind of like showcases like what you're able to unlock when you maybe pair 2 color combinations that aren't necessarily like known for their power level within the game. But yeah, so the kind of the most commonly used case right now for this card in particular is in I guess it's infamously known as the Chernodog deck. But the goal is essentially kind of flood the board, be able to play at least one, maybe multiple tramps within the same turn. And all you're doing is you're drawing and essentially just like filling up your discard pile so that you can then play a very inexpensive Chernobog on the same turn. And we saw that against Mo in the tournament in Texas. And I think his opponent played 2 tramps in the same turn on top of a Chernobog, on top of having like multiple other characters on board. And so you think of like swarm potential, anything that like basically allows you to cheat out the mechanics of the game is always going to have some element of potential power with it. This one, when you combine it with other things that also are typically a little bit more restrictive, like Chernobog being, I think it's a 10 cost card, like just creates a crazy amount of power that you can unlock. And so thankfully, like most of the rest of the deck, you're playing a bunch of like relatively like underpowered characters. And so it doesn't necessarily like overwhelm you as much with the other cards, but there's a ton of other things that those other characters can do. And so I just think this card is super cool. I'm trying to figure out how to play it in Under the Sea, because that deck is notorious for like not quite having enough draw power to get to all of your outs. And so this is one that's interesting for me as well. But I ever since I saw this card, it was like one of the first things that I thought of was like, how can we make this card work? And these color combinations are definitely not the most popular, and so kudos for them to kind of pair these two together. But I just really like this card a lot.
Yeah, I do too. And you made a really good point that this is basically the quintessential like double ink card that you want. When all of them were being revealed initially, I think everybody felt really good about like where the Ruby Steel cards were. It was like these feel very Ruby Steel. And I think there was a little bit of that for like Emerald, Sapphire as well. Some very disruptive stuff. A lot of stuff messing with the ink. And again, it was very underrepresented of a color combination, and so that feels good from a helping the game advance perspective. And then slowly as people start to play around with these cards, you see the Tramp getting a lot of play, and people playing around with this one. And so yeah, I think that this is a perfect one to showcase for all of the reasons that you stated.
Yeah, not to like sidebar too much. One thing to call it is the price on these, like very affordable, which is awesome. And I love that. What I really hope that they do, if they continue down the path of dual link cards in the future, What I don't quite like is the dual link cards that are like very thematic specific.
Yeah.
And so like limiting like your Sapphire Amber into just like Poppy support is kind of frustrating because like
Yeah.
that archetype like already needs like the Amber Sapphire archetype like needs a lot of support in general, and now you're basically like forcing that color combination to basically only be able to play puppies. And so I don't like that too much. It's kind of too narrow for my taste, but I they'll work on it over time. I thought they did a good job with kind of bringing some of those to life. Ruby Steel you mentioned. I was playing some of that last night, and that deck is super fun. It's still a little underpowered relative to everything else going on in the meta, but there's a lot of cool Ruby Steel cards that came out that most people kind of overlook because they're not playing that color combination. But there's some fun cards in there.
Yeah, I would say when they released Mulan and Mushu were definitely I think two of the more hyped ones, but then it comes to like actually playing the game and playing matches, and then it's like okay, these are a little slow for where we're trying to be. If you're playing, I mean Mushu's a 5 cost, and if you're playing against Sapphire, by the time you're at 5, they're probably at 8, and so then you're just like way behind. But yeah, to really quickly on your point on the Tramp, it currently I'm looking at TCG Player. It's currently 27 cents. For the regular and $3 for the foil. So yeah, if you're wanting to play something fun, if you're on the aggressive play style, and you want to update your lists, I would say go look up the Churna Dog as Daniel said, because it's got a lot of potential out there for you for sure. But yeah,
I think we've talked about that on the pod previously. Cause if I remember, I think James and Zane mentioned it a little bit because the Rapunzel's like the most expensive card in the deck, but I don't even know that you necessarily need her. So if you can't afford her, like there's other options for you.
Yeah, there's definitely ways around it for sure. I saw a funny comment today actually on how Tamatoa, the new Happy as a Clam legendary, is basically Rapunzel for Sapphire, which is kind of crazy to think because Rapunzel's still like the most broken card in Amber. I mean, you could probably throw in Ariel Spectacular Singer in that conversation too, but the comparison point was made because it's a very consistent draw engine that's mid to late game that also is a really strong body on board and is inkable and has a ton of impact on the game. And I was like, well, I mean, that kind of makes a lot of sense, but I think the difference is that Sapphire has very other strong draw engines and very other strong capabilities around the deck comparatively to Rapunzel that just has a lot of aggressive questers and other healers that don't have near the impact that she does. But yeah, to that point, I don't think Rapunzel's like super necessary. Because you could throw in Diablo if you wanted to for like the Churna Dog deck or other ways to get some draw. But yeah, she's a strong one for sure.
Agreed.
Okay, so yeah, like we talked about a little bit of some of the stuff and how some of the meta is shaping up. What better way to talk about how the meta is shaping up and how things are starting to come together than some of the biggest tournaments we've ever had for Set 7. So last weekend was the CCS game or convention. I don't know, is it a convention? I feel like it's a show. Or I mean, it's because it's not just a tournament. They do a ton of stuff there. I mean, but anyways, they had
I've heard it's like an old Burlington coat factory building that the owner kind of like transformed into almost like a not quite convention, but like I don't want to like stereotype it as like a flea market, but like think like flea market where there's like different booths where people can like rent out and like and so like that's kind of the style from what I was told, but it's so like massive. Like I was told they had like the Lorcana was in like a corner of the building with all 300 people, so like it's a relatively large facility. Yeah, so 320 people essentially played in the first big turn. We've had a couple. We had the 10 case in South Florida the first weekend the set came out, and that was 100-ish people. Very underdeveloped meta at that time, obviously, because it was literally the second day of the meta, and so you have some people that were playing with proxies and stuff beforehand, but no real data on what to go off of. And so Zane obviously ran away with that one. Then we go to Dallas for a mid-sized tournament with like 70 people. A decent showing there. Had some green steel stuff, had some purple steel do relatively well. And then this weekend, starting to have like an actual developed meta. We have a couple weekends of people being able to test and to see where things are going and to start being able to build decks into what they expect to see.
and a massive tournament on top of that, and then one in France we can talk about as well. But yeah, CCS showed that I don't think it's quite as boogeyman-y-esque as everybody said at the beginning of it. Like it always is. It's always, oh, there's one thing that's broken because somebody finds something outside on the fringe that nobody else is ready for, and that outside on the fringe that nobody else is ready for, runs the gauntlet, and then everybody freaks out, and then it figures out how to get beaten. And I think that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, I mean, like the evolution of Blue Steel, even just in those 3 tournaments, you can kind of see how it's transformed, but then you can kind of see how everybody's predicting and catching up to combat it. And so that was when Mo and I were on a few weeks ago, we were kind of talking about like, is Sapphire tier 0, like Blue Steel, should we even play? Like, what do we do? And I kind of mentioned like this happens every set. Like, just take a little bit of time and things will settle down. People will figure out how to counter, and then the deck that gets countered will figure out how to counter back. And while they're kind of battling it out, somebody will come up with a third deck and kind of figure out how to beat both of them. So we've kind of seen that over the evolution of these 3 tournaments alone in the U.S.
Yeah, and to that point, there's definitely beasts that just don't die. And what I mean by that is there's color combinations. And I mean, I say this and like you're going to have an extremely good counter argument to me that is just going to throw this whole point in my face. But
it's good. We were told that we're supposed to argue more often, so I've got to figure out how to get under your skin a little bit.
There's color combinations that just don't die, right? Your steel songs have been around since set 1, and it feels like that's the one that at the beginning everybody set at the beginning of every set everybody's like, well, song is dead, time to move on to whatever the new hot thing is. But then it always seems to like come crawling back. Just the power level that you have for being able to sing, really impactful songs so early on and being able to refill your hand so easily with A Whole New World just shows that that's never going to really die. It's starting to have the tools to be able to be flexible enough to, to adapt to whatever the meta is. So that one, has continued to show a lot of strong points. Red Blue was like, okay, it's definitely not going to be able to compete with Blue Steel anymore. Once we get into the bracket in the top 8 of CCS, that becomes very clear that that's not the case either. So yeah, I think that while there's always like the boogeyman at the beginning of the set, the tried and true color combinations have always been there, will always continue to be. And I left off Ruby Amethyst, and maybe I shouldn't have, because we had a top 8 on Ruby Amethyst this last weekend on the CCS show, our tournament, which, I mean, it's kind of dead. Is it not dead? Are people going to jump back on board? Like, I don't know how to think about that one.
2 things. One, first of all, thank you for showing off your collection. 100% complete on all of these decks. I don't know if that was intentional or not, but congratulations.
You can see it. Everybody else can't. I was pulling this up because I was going to make the joke. Like, you can see what I've been.
Humble brag.
You can see what I'm building is that I've built 14 decks for this set, and 12 of them are iterations of Blue Steel. So I was
there's some other like colors you can.
I know. I was trying to make the point that you said, the Blue Steel deck is iterated, every single weekend into some new form. And I was kind of just backing up that point that I have 14 Blue Steel decks in 2 weeks on different builds that I've been trying or theorizing with. So
to be 100% fair to you, though, like you have been playing Blue Steel for a very long time, though. So it is like very much in like your comfort zone to like figure out how to like, now that it's finally a like top tier color combination and you're not trying to force it into that mold. Like, yeah, I don't blame you for doing that. One thing I was going to call out, and I've thought about this earlier today, so I guess timing is relevant. Like, all of the ink colors kind of have their own identity from the beginning. Yep. And one thing that I have noticed is that Sapphire has kind of not necessarily warped, but they've gained additional identities over time. And so like it was very much like ramp. And then it became like ramp with a little bit of draw. Yeah. And now it's like ramp with a little bit of draw plus ways to recycle that draw and draw more.
Yeah.
And so when you think of like Amethyst, which is like almost exclusively draw with a little bit of like damage manipulation, like Amethyst doesn't really like need to exist as much to support the other combinations from drawing, because Sapphire can ramp and draw, which is awesome. You get to later game faster and you draw almost to the same level as Amethyst, because there's not much kind of downside of the draw cards that you're putting in your deck. Most of them, if not all of them, are inkable, and like you don't run the risk of breaking your hand when you're putting in those sapphire cards. So it's just something that has kind of crossed my mind of like why Amethyst has struggled a little bit, especially like Ruby Amethyst. Now we did have one make it into top 8 at CCS, and I think I saw a note that there was only like 5 Ruby Amethyst decks in the entire field.
It's funny you say that because I can pull that up real quick, and so now everybody can see the screen. So yeah, here's a meta breakdown from Knive on X. He does a lot of the good stuff, and so these are just percentages. But yeah, if we look at like Ruby Sapphire, where's Ruby Amethyst? Is it like that small? I don't even see it. Is it literally an other? It's literally an other. Yeah, it's literally
so
an other.
You can see Zeke over in the comment section is asking how many other people are on
total
it.
of 5. There you go. You said it right. Yeah, I'm not even. I'm like looking at the wheel, not paying attention to the rest of the context clues on the page. But yeah, it's yeah.
I think Mo was in that other bucket too, if I'm not mistaken.
Mo definitely in the other bucket.
Yeah, but so anyways, it was just something that kind of caught my eye. Now, like in most card games, like drawing and like controlling the board and banishing characters is going to be like a high performing choice for you, and so I imagine like Ruby Amethyst will figure out a way to become more relevant within the meta, but it is fighting a little bit of an uphill battle right now because it like a lot of what Ruby does from a banishing standpoint, there's a lot of options, and you kind of have to wait and see how you're banishing cards before you can run with it. So I don't know. I thought that was interesting. And then the other thing that like was top of mind for me was kind of the big bad Ruby Sapphire resurgence coming back in pretty heavily into the top 8 at CCS.
We'll jump over to that one might as well. Yeah, I would say it made it reared its head back into the meta in a very strong way.
Well, so one of the things that I noticed, I think somebody mentioned it to me, but like Maui Half Shark was like a pretty big staple in set 6 meta, and kind of like the development of Ruby Sapphire basically at the beginning of set 7 was to continue on what was working in set 6, which was a little bit of DKP lists, which is kind of like a burn version of the deck, and then like your more stereotypical control with a little bit of Sisu. The big one, I think it's Empowered Sibling, but I don't remember the subtitle.
In Bulletin Board, no, you're right.
I am right.
I think so. I'm gonna look.
You have the Dreamborn. You can look.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I did notice in a lot of these lists was a lot of people went up to 3 or 4 of the Empowered Sibling. So that's the 8 cost or 8 drop Sisu, and I thought that was so smart because you think of like the Sapphire 12 being able to reduce everything, and then like what's Ruby Sapphire's general like weakness is boards going wide really quick and you not being able to manage it, and so being able to get to that Sisu, running a little Sisu to be able to shift out, like super smart. So now I think I say all that, I'm pretty sure Hector was on 4 Maui Half Sharks, so like a little bit backwards from what I just said, but I listened to him talk on the Lumiteer show the other day. And
it was on 4. I must have seen a different list or must have looked at the list wrong, but yeah, he is on 4. We'll see. It says 3 right there. Oh no, we're looking at Half Sharks, not CCs. Yeah, I think also the thing that makes Maui worse in my eyes is that up until this point, I think it very much changes now with these results. But up until this point, it was a very steel-dominated meta, right? Like Sapphire steals all over the place. I mean, I think it was like 40% in one of the big tournaments. On top of that, people are still playing songs. On top of that, people are playing purple steel as well. And so if we're saying it's just throwing out a random number, 70% purple, or not purple, steel game, meta game, with Pete being a more often than not 3 to 4 copies in a deck, Maui gets turned off a bunch. And then you throw in the Zeus's that, if you play it, you Pete, you try to find your Zeus, then you Zeus the Maui, strength. We're going to talk about that one in a little bit as well. Strength is getting really strong also, just because of the low to the ground wide boards, as you mentioned, it turns on strength to be able to hit a Maui Half Shark. So that was my thing where I think it slowed down a little bit. Obviously, if you're winning the big tournament with 4 of them, there's definitely still some relevancy there. But yeah, I was very shocked to see that too.
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm looking at like the list of Sharknado, which is a funny name. Like, really, the win condition is just to like survive. Like, you're quite literally just like boa constrictor on like the opponent and just exhausting them of all their resources,
Yeah.
and then eventually questing out because you don't really have dimes. You're running the Tamatoa happy as a clam, but like you're literally just using that as a pseudo draw engine, and so just a really really interesting approach to it. And I imagine like Hector will probably have refined this like 3 times since, but I'm not surprised to see that this is what won. But Zane did take a match off of him, so shout out Zane.
We do need to talk about that one too. So yeah, if we I mean, I mentioned it in the top of the show that one of our teammates, Zane, who was on the podcast last week, was in third place at the end of day one, which is 7 rounds of Swiss, and Hector's only loss was to Zane. So that's pretty crazy. I mean, technically, the whole tournament, right? Hector won the whole thing. So yeah, I mean,
yeah. So he ID'd, I think in round 9, which I was very much against. I was looking at like all the Swiss, and there's a lot of people IDing with no guarantee of being in the top 8 after that, and that was a little scary. But Hector ID'd in round 9, and then obviously went on and won out. So Zane was the only person to beat him in the entire tournament, which is pretty awesome considering he was on Amber Steel, which is usually pretty unfavored against Ruby Sapphire. So shout out Zane. Unfortunate that James and Zane got paired against one another.
Oh yeah, we have to tell that story. I mean, not that I forgot about it, but I just didn't think about that as like a conversation topic for tonight. But yeah, you have to talk about that for sure.
Yeah, the two guests from last week, father-son duo, both win round 1. James got paired against somebody with the exact same name as him in round 1, which was also funny because I thought that was just Melee making a mistake and he like basically got a bye, but nope, he got paired against somebody with the exact same name
who made top 8.
And who ended up, so James beat him, and then the dude just went on and won every round after that, and also made top 8. And so that was funny. But yeah, then James and Zane got paired against each other in round 2, and they decided to draw so that they could not necessarily knock each other out. And then like just went on to run the gauntlet. I think Zane was 3rd after day 1, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
At 601, which is insane when you consider all of the names and people that were in that tournament who didn't even get to 4 or 5 wins by the end of the tournament.
Yeah, I mean, it was a massive who's who of Lorcana for sure. I mean, I could probably name 20 players that I know. But yeah, to your point, it very much stinks, and not to get us on a complete other tangent because it definitely doesn't matter because it's changing very soon. But there's something weird with Melee. Like, can we all agree on that? Like, they share the last name obviously because they're father son, and I feel like they get paired into each other all the time, and it's always like a sticking point. And Zan got 2 buys back-to-back tournaments. To me, that's just like, are they going like Z? You know, like literally the last person on the list gets the buy. Like, I genuinely don't know how it works. I'm not saying anything nefarious at all. It's a weird platform that a lot of weird things happen. We had, again, 320 players. They were not the only 2 people from our group that got paired up against each other that weekend either, or last weekend either. Yep. I mean, there were other people. We had a group of, I think, 7 or 8 go together, and other people got paired into each other as well. So it's a weird platform. Thank goodness Ravensburger's coming out with their own, and next set we have our own tournament software that we get to use to manage all this, because Melee is not the most intuitive in the world, I would say.
The risk of like dating myself, I was thinking like if you could reverse engineer it and figure out like how the buys are awarded or how they're assigned, it's almost like the old school like Yellow Pages or directory where like everybody started their like business with like 1, 2, 3 or ABC just to like show up on the top of the list. Yeah, you'd have everybody like 15 Z's at the beginning of their name.
Triple A plumbing.
Like weird like emojis and symbols and wingdings and other stuff. So yeah.
Well, I guess too we got to finish Zane's run. So Zane was 3rd after Swiss on day 1. I actually talked to him today, and apparently what happened, and again, like this is going to happen in big tournaments, but what he said is that he played 2 Ruby Sapphire. He was on Amber Steel songs. He going into day 2. Both of his matchups were against Ruby Sapphire, and so it's an unfair matchup there to begin with. But apparently, word starts to get around. When you're in third place, what you're playing, and so the 2 people that he played against were both on teams, and both of those teams not teched, but because you can't change your deck, but practiced into his list, knowing there was a good chance that they would play him because they were, at the end of the day, they played a couple of the other players on the top, so they wouldn't be able to play them. And so just from a matchup perspective, there was a strong chance that they would have to play against him. And so I don't know, like, if that has an impact or if like that should be changed so that can't happen. But it definitely did, and it definitely had an impact because if you have a chance to go practice against it, and there is a very slippery tech card that's in the list that most people may not be ready for, then you know how to play against it.
Yeah, I mean, this might be a controversial take. I don't see any problem with that. It's information that you can get by like walking around the table and stuff, and the fact that Swiss was split up over 2 days, like if you're in contention, like you're probably going to be trying to figure out what you're going to be matched up against, practicing into hands against things that you saw that was sitting next to you. So I don't really have any concern over like that strategic approach.
No, and yeah, from a like I would absolutely do the same thing. I mean, we were trying to help our teammates as much as we could too. From a what are the standings looking like? What are the points looking like? What's the cutoff looking like? What's the expectations for what you need to score? Who's winning, who's not, and that sort of thing. So I don't necessarily have a problem with it. It's more like, is that format then where you have the day 2 or the rest of the Swiss rounds on a separate day? Like, how do you plan for that? I guess because then I guess you can't. It's just one of those things that you have to be ready for because you're gonna have to expect your opponents to play better against you the second day. I guess is all you can really do.
Yeah, and that's essentially it. Like if you're doing something that's slightly off meta or not necessarily predictable for an opponent that's going in blind into the matchup, you're going to be somewhat more disadvantaged than you would have been if all of Swiss was on the same day. I would hope future tournaments, if they do like day 2 Swiss, maybe add a 3rd round of Swiss, and then cut to a larger percentage, especially if the field is 300 people, because it essentially at that point you're running a 5-round tournament on Sunday, and like the field is much smaller in the rounds 3, 4, and 5 because that's the top 8. Right. And so I think you could run like another 7 rounds essentially, and have a larger top cut because it is pretty brutal for somebody to go in this case 7-1-1, which I think we had 2 people in this tournament, and not make top cut, and that's a pretty painful experience when you've played and you've had that much success all day. And so obviously it's hard to predict and hard to manage, but other TCGs I've played typically like change like their top cut structure based off of the number of attendees. And so just something hopefully that the tournament organizers are looking at and reviewing. Kudos to them for like running something with guaranteed cash prize pool. Like that's awesome. In lieu of DLCs right now, I hope we have more of those. Yes. And so, like, I think that's not something that, from a community standpoint, like, don't take that for granted because they don't have to do those things.
No, and it's huge. They upped the prize pool 3 times. It started off at 8, went to 10, went to 12, went to 13 by the end of the, or I guess the start of the tournament because they just kept the amount of people registering just kept going up and up and up, and so they just kept scaling it with it, and they obviously don't have to do that either. And so that's really cool to see that somebody's that involved in the community and that. Willing, I guess, to just make it part of the tournament versus just they could have easily just pocketed a couple extra $1,000 based on the other players that signed up, but they sent it back to everybody playing, so that's really cool to see too.
The other thing I'm like hoping for is that like Ravensburger is looking at this. One of my biggest like concerns for like future DLC season is like the like 959 like ticket clicking that we have to do right now, where it's like wait for Eventbrite to open up the ticket so you can go mash the button and get it. And so I'm hoping that after the first part of DLC season last year, where it was like I think it was a cap of like 500 or something, and they had to like double every DLC after that. And so I'm hoping that they make it more of an open venue, where you can pre-order your tickets, but the cap is extremely high, so that we don't necessarily have like a hard cap on the number of people, because I imagine these tournaments, that they will run can reach much higher quantities, considering that they filled 2,000 person tournaments multiple times.
Yeah, I mean, it has to just be getting bigger, right? Like, surely. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's weird because they cap it all, they sell it out, and then it's usually like 1,850 to 1,900 that actually show up. And so I don't know. Maybe if you sell 3,000 tickets, then 2,700 show up. But yeah, I mean, I would imagine you could sell well over 2,000 tickets because it just continues to grow. The international appeal continues to get bigger with it expanding to more markets. We've seen Chapter 1 releasing in Brazil. We've seen Chapter 1 releasing in Asia. And so the amount of exposure that it continues to get just grows. And so I can't imagine season 2 isn't much bigger than season 1, especially after Worlds gets announced, and whenever that happens, is just gonna create even a bigger boom because we'll have a world champion crowd at that point.
I am optimistic that they are reviewing things, and I mean, especially with some of their public statements that they've come out with, like they definitely hear and see and are working to improve things. So I'm hopeful that we will have. I want the largest tournaments ever. Like I don't really like mind like going to go play in a 3,500 person tournament. I feel like that's super fun. The excitement, like
crazy.
the energy in that room is always super fun, anyways. And I hate like when I'm just like reading on like Discord or Reddit, whatever. Like people are upset because they couldn't go, and it was in their backyard, and this is like the only DLC that they'd be able to go to because they didn't have to travel. So
Yeah.
shout out to those people. I see your messages, and I'm hopeful that you can go to the next one.
I can't think that it won't get better. I mean, they're hiring out a huge team of people to help manage the tournament circuit. To your point, there's no way that their eyes are blind to all of the stuff going on in the community. I mean, there was a 10K tournament the first weekend. There's been a couple, I think 3 and 5K tournaments already. There was a 13K, which the CCS we've talking about. There's 2 5K tournaments this coming weekend on Saturday and Sunday in Wisconsin. And so, yeah, I mean, there's clearly a very big desire to be competitive and to have this, skill expressed, I guess, from, a large player base. And so, yeah, just set it uncapped. Like, I don't care. Do it at, like American Airlines Arena in Dallas next time, and just like have everybody on like the court of the Mavs, and then just have the biggest stadium ever. But no, I mean seriously, yeah, there's so many big venues out there that I don't know the logistics behind handling an event like this, and the cost kind of bands as that goes up. When you go from 2,000 to 3,000 to 4,000, I mean maybe it's like exponentially worse, and so it there becomes much less financially viable the bigger you get. I'm just trying to spitball potential reasons out there, but I really would.
I mean, there's
a
logistical side of house. Yeah, just I imagine like when we went to Seattle, like they had the convention center, right? Like you've got to have a security team, you've got to pay for internet, and like there's a lot of other costs that just go into like running a tournament. I'm not sure if they outsource that to like PPG or if that's all done by Ravensburg. I'm not sure, but there's like we want more, and so it's just a matter of figuring out how can you financially make it worthwhile for everybody involved. So
Okay, well,
I'm eager for more competitive tournaments.
we're
As somebody
off,
that hasn't
we're
played
off on
one.
this tangent now, so we might as well go down a little bit further. How many DLCs do you think is on the schedule this year? Do you think they keep it at 6? Do you think they expand, like rather than doing bigger tournaments, they do like 8 or 10, and make the qualification system like larger of a pool? Or do they do bigger tournaments? Like, what would you like to see change from that standpoint?
I would like for there to be more and potentially like more layers of tournaments. So have like Yu-Gi-Oh, at least back in like the mid 2010s, early 2010s. I don't know if it still does. Like you could qualify for like their version of nationals at regional events by placing. I think it was like top 4 at the time, and it might have expanded to top 8. And then those got passed down if somebody was above you that had pre-qualified, similar to the DLC structure. And then they had YCS, so like Yu-Gi-Oh! Championship Series, and like top 64 got invites to Nats. And their Nats ended up being like a 2,500 person event that also had LCQs that you could go, and it was just fill up a pod and go and go and go. And so like their nats are pretty big. I think Pokemon does something similar today.
Yeah.
I don't follow it as closely. I would like for them to have more structure because it is really difficult to travel for a lot of people far away. And when you only have like 6 events in like your country, or maybe none if you live in countries that don't have a big event, like you have to travel outside your country. It's just, there's a lot of logistics and expenses that go into traveling to an event, and then that event, you know, potentially having 1,000, 2,000 people, it's hard to make the nationals. I would hope for more. What I think they're probably going to do is probably keep a pretty similar structure, I guess, for the second year. And I imagine that they might tweak it going into year 3. That would be my guess. Just from like an organizational standpoint, I feel like it's probably pretty tough for them to scale out like these regionals without partnering with like the LGS level.
For sure. I mean, I think with the new system they're building, like hopefully that's kind of the thought is like if we have, you know, a company-owned system in place to help manage some of that infrastructure behind the scenes, then hopefully that could do it. You know, I think from your point on like the structure this year, it has to be probably relatively similar. I think we're late enough in the year now with no announcements on, you know, any of the, you know, sponsored play events that if they, you know, try to switch it up and do a bunch of things and, you know, we get to June, July and there's still no events because they're trying to, you know, overhaul everything versus just let's keep it all the same, you know, let's roll with it. Let's get some events out there and kind of, you know, go with the flow. And so from that perspective, I'd, you know, much rather them just, you know, get stuff out there and get some tournaments going. But I guess my final thought on this one before we kind of go back to, you know, the set 7 stuff is the whole point of like a national championship or a world championship is, you know, theoretically, right, supposed to be the best of the best competing and, you know, the best talent. And while I very much firmly believe that everybody that's qualified for worlds is an extremely good player, I will say that some of the people in the community that I have a ton of respect for and I know are extremely good players never, you know, or didn't qualify for continentals. Some didn't even, you know, day 2 because it's just that ruthless of a system. And so, you know, giving more chances or, you know, lightening the cut a little bit or, you know, to your point, making more rounds, you know, to kind of, you know, make the top people, you know, surface their way to the top of the list, I think just makes it feel a lot more fair. And maybe fair is the wrong word to use, but you know, just feel a lot more consistent. And so anything that they can do to make it more, I guess consistent is the word I want to use in this point to assure the best players that they have the best chance possible and that they're not just going to get left out by a bad draw or a bad matchup or, you know, one bad game that they just, you know, completely bricked on and that, you know, ruin their entire tournament. And, you know, it's things like that, you know, leave bad taste in people's mouth. And so that, you know, anything we can do to kind of mitigate that, I think is really good too.
I'm honored that you thought of me on that response.
Always.
And
Always.
I think it's spot on. Like the game itself has a lot of variance, right? And so when you add more variance within like the
Right.
tournament structure and qualifications, you're going to leave out top players, which doesn't feel good. So I'm quite confident like they are thinking about this. How fast that they can react upon it is like remains to be seen. And as with most things in like the corporate world, probably going to take a few months to react to everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we both work for very big companies, and I very much am always frustrated with how slow big companies move. But yeah, it's one of the unfortunate, you know, just things that come.
Speedboats and cruise ships, and we've got Ravensburger cruise ship is trying to turn. It just takes a little bit.
I would imagine Disney. I don't know. See, I don't know how much Disney like has involvement on like the organized. But probably not on the organized play side at all. But anything that you have to do, I don't remember. I think it was the artist on the Illumineers. That we were talking to after the show, and she was just saying like, yeah, all of
humble brag, talk to an artist, yeah, what do you mean?
all of the all of the steps that they went through, like all of the iterations for like one card art. You know, she had drawn the Merlin goat, and she was like, yeah, we went back and forth for like 6 months, and this was like pre-production because it was a set 2 card, and so nothing was even out yet, and so just the amount of, you know, again, just things in the background that we don't even think about. I imagine there's just tons of layers that we don't even see as a community. And so Am I frustrated? Sure. I'm just not very patient, but am I understanding? Very much so. Like that's just, you know, how it's going to be. It's big. Yeah, cruise ships take a ton of time to move.
Disney has cruise ships too. So
that's a good one. Yeah.
That was a decent joke. No, I mean, pretty familiar with like Disney's approach to things. They're incredibly protective of their IP, as they should be.
Very.
And so taking 6 months to land the card art for Merlin Goat is not all that surprising. And like they will do that for everything. It doesn't even have to be, a highly played card, because they wouldn't have known that going in. It's strictly like
Sure.
making sure that everything's signed off on. So anyways, I feel like we probably took a little bit of a detour there, but that was fun.
That's good. Yeah, that's good. I think, I think again, it's just healthy conversation. I know that they hear us and I know that they want it, but I'd very much like to be the rational voice. There's people like banging down fences on like, give us DLCs. And again, while internally I definitely feel like that just because I'm a competitive person and I love the atmosphere and the venue and the competition and everything, I very much understand, as well. So, okay, last big topic, I guess, is what you brought up, which I have thought a little bit about, just like on a large scale, but I think, we're getting into the place now where we can start kind of talking through this, is what cards had a bunch of hype at the beginning of the set that have definitely not lived up, and trying to, assess, is it just because it's, very meta driven and it's not meta? Is it, a bad card? What would the case, and from that respect be? And so I don't know if you have anything that you want to talk about on that regard to start off with, but
I know I sent you like the prompt, but I quite literally don't have an answer off the top of my head.
That's fine.
Which is on par.
I think that the first thing that comes to my mind, honestly, is just looking through this list, is a lot of the Duel Link cards. Again, they said from the beginning of this that they wanted the Duel Link to be the focus of the set, and so there are no locations. There's, I think it's like 20 per color. Like Amber has 20 pairs, and so that's just a lot of cards that are devoted to it.
Yep.
And I mean, there's, I don't know how many are being played right now. I mean, 5 maybe at max.
Yeah, very, very low quantity. I feel bad for the Amber Ruby players. I did not mean to omit you from my puppy comment earlier, because I also want Speedway to work, but I don't want it to work so bad that we have to dedicate all of these like racer cards and support to it when it doesn't get it yet. So, but yeah, no, I think that's one of the interesting things, like, in this set, because they focus so much on Duel Link, is that you're naturally going to create like much less flexibility within the set design for people who are trying to warp their current deck. And so I think that's like, I imagine some of these cards will become much more popular and played as future sets are released, and the cards here become kind of the foundation for whatever that deck is that doesn't quite have nearly as much support as it has today. But yeah, right now it feels honestly a little underwhelming. There's cards like that Baymax, the giant robot, that like caught my eye right away, and unfortunately, like Emerald Sapphire, it's not quite competitive enough to kind of make a big stamp in the meta just yet. So,
no, and I think Mo has finally conceded to that one too. Mo, went to the CCS as well and brought Emerald Sapphire, and we tested everything, and he felt really good about it. And then you pair into a couple on tournaments that big, you pair into a couple matchups that you just can't prepare for, and when that happens, the unexpected does, and then you just aren't ready for it, because we hadn't fully teched out everything, because it's early in the set. There's a lot of things to prepare for in that big of a field. So it's a tough one. I don't know. I mean, I think there's a bunch of them that have the potential that you get kind of jazzed about, and then it just never pans out.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the 3/1 drop Bell has kind of met expectations. Tamatoa, Chinese Clam has met expectations. Scrooge was a little bit of a surprise out the gate. Wasn't necessarily on everyone's radar as a good card until people realized that you can play a 4/4 for free that sings Long Game Zeus and also get you another card. And so that one's kind of surprised people. I really want this other Baymax, the Sapphire one that's kind of like an aerial for Floodborns.
The upgraded robot? Yep.
Yeah, I really want this card to work. And I'm just trying to figure out, is it too slow right now? How do we play the right Floodborns to really make it a good card? But there's so many I think cool concepts of cards in here. We're just dealing with a meta that's really tempo based right now. And if you are trying to slowly build your board and your game plan, you're kind of just going to fall too far behind, especially when it's tempo based and it's all singing related songs. So like Amber Steel and Blue Steel are doing a ton to manage the board while also building their own board, and you can't take turns off just trying to draw your cards. Because there's, outside of Ruby, like no real easy way to reset the board after they've taken off.
No, that's a really good point. And if I, kind of following up on that, the big thing that I would say is a disappointment is honestly all of these Blue Steel Duel Link cards. Like I was like pumped.
Thankfully,
I was.
Yeah, I'm so glad these aren't that. You can play Hey Hey if you want. You can throw the Hey Hey and put your whole hand in your hand if you want.
I tried to figure out a way to make that one work with some just like crazy combo pieces, and then anytime you get into a 4 crazy combo piece setup, then it just like never ends up working. But like Lady Cluck, the 5-cost bodyguard that has ward, I mean that's just seems like really really solid stats. Really fun, interesting way to do it. I even thought the Maid Marian.
You should play 4 this weekend. Just try it out. It's really good.
No, nice try. My Blue Steel list is locked and ready to go. The Maid Marian, the 4-cost inkable that says during your opponent's turn, whenever one of your ally characters is damaged, deal 1 damage to chosen opposing character. There's so much ally synergy this time. The songs deck is the one that's taking advantage of it the most.
So with Bianca?
Yeah, with Bianca is the big one that I was thinking of. And then the new Troubadour, the Duel Link card, that's one of the ones that people are playing for sure. It's an ally as well, and so between the Troubadour and Smee and Tipo, there's enough, of the main pairings into Steel that you play that are allies that Bianca has started to see a lot of play. And so along that line, it's like, okay, well, Maid Marian, makes a lot of sense to be in that same boat because she's, helping further your case to play those allies and to get even more benefit from them. But yeah, I just think all of these ones, like the complete item synergy that you get, it's everything is just item, and Scrooge very much is, I think, over to your point, like over or going over expectations because I very much just undervalued what another strong 4-cost body would be. If in the current iterations of Blue. Whether it be Ruby Sapphire or Sapphire Steel, it's basically Hiram and Grammatala. Grammatala is good, obviously, like she's a fine card, but the 3/3 body is very, very different than a 4/4 body. And so if you have a 4/4/4 body that also has a lot of potential in the late game, it's very, very strong. So I'm very much in Camp Scrooge. Especially if like you have your items on board and you can cheat it out for free to get your dime to then quest with your Tamatoa to then play for free. You went from digging for the dime for free to playing it for free to tapping it for 2 to close out a game. Like that's just, an utterly busted combo. And so, yeah, I would say underperforming in my eyes would be the Blue Steel Duel Link, and then overperforming would definitely be
Thankfully those are underperforming. Yeah, I mean, I was like, I just scrolling through and just looking at like all the other like Duel Ink cards. I think I had talked about like the Amber Amethyst Magical stuff, which is like a lot of song support, but no good songs that you really want to do with it.
That's a one for sure.
Green Steel's been, I think, a little. I'd say it's probably meeting expectations in terms of what it expected pre-release. The Jantu. My pronunciation's always
I see it both ways. Honestly, I don't know what the right one is. I'm somebody.
I mean, it's
on that one. I always say Gantu, but
I've watched Lilo and Stitch a few times recently, but I don't know that I paid attention too much to what it's pronounced. Like this feels like a good counter card to even like potentially play in your own Blue Steel deck. I don't know like your own Inkables and if you're kind of like running a little too close to the sun by throwing in more, but just to turn off like your opponent's ability to play catch up. Is nice. One thing to note with this card, which I didn't read the first time I saw it, watch if your opponent plays this on you, that they can't sing the turn they play it on you if they play this first. And so like sequencing of that will matter at some point and it will mess somebody up and they'll be very upset with themselves. But just be careful on that. The body, like, it's a super underpowered card for its cost and it's uninkable, but it is a disruptor. If you're able to kind of recapture the board against a Sapphire deck, make it really tough for them to kind of draw into their outs.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one. I'm glad you brought this up because I've tested against this a little bit, and it is quite possibly the most annoying card to go against. And so I am really interested as to why this doesn't see more play, because I feel like this plays well into every single meta deck. Your blue decks are very item focused and very item heavy, and are obviously needing to recur those items from the Tamatoas to, you know, continue their draw engine, to continue the ramp. From a like a Ruby Sapphire perspective, they're very much like singing their How Far All Goes, their Pirates' Lives, their Be Prepared, you know, playing the Be Prepared, swipe the board to move the slate clean. They don't even care if you can't necessarily sing Be Prepared. If you're not able to play it on 7 because you have to pay 2 more, then it definitely delays you a turn for sure. And so, yeah, I don't know. It definitely feels like an interesting one. Steel Song, I mean, you know, everything you're trying to sing and refresh, and if you can't sing the turn you're played, you just have more Pete's that you have to, you know, go on an uphill battle against to beat out. This is an interesting one that, again, every time I've played against it, I've always been really, really frustrated. And
yeah, I feel like it's like a super irritating card to go against, but I bet right now what's happening is a lot of people are prioritizing like the other like known power cards in Steel. It would not surprise me if this card cracks kind of into the meta as a 1 or 2 of in some Steel variant.
Yeah, I don't know how common the price for like a $12 super rare is for the foil. Like, that seems like kind of on the expensive side. So
I would agree.
There's definitely
somebody's hoarding those up for the day. I mean, if you look at the Ruby Steel Mushu too, like that's a rare, and it's still I think still $10 for a foil. And I don't know if that's because everybody has a little bit of buyer's remorse and they're holding on to it, but $11 for a foil of that right now, and
is not
$5.5 for just a non-foil, which I don't know if I even own. I might have one of these. I didn't buy a lot of cards this set, mainly because I wasn't sure how much I was going to be able to play, and I figured I could hold off and wait until cards came down a little bit.
See, I went the different route. I just bought singles. I bought 4 of everything that's not legendary, because it's just I got that from you, actually. I don't remember when you said you did that, but you were the one that I got that idea from.
I think it was like Ursula's Return or Shimmering Skies is when I started doing that. But this set kind of snuck up on me a little bit.
The math on the boxes, I mean, I'm going to go down a really big tangent here, but
reel it in.
The math on the box is just, I finally like had the epiphany, and I was like, I don't care about the gambling anymore. The math on the boxes just doesn't work. And so I started very much diving into the singles route.
So is it safe to say it's more exciting to open up mail that has an enchanted Tamatoa than it is to open up a box and maybe get an enchanted Tamatoa?
I would say yes. I don't know why I'm showing my Cogsworth off, but yeah.
Hey, give the Cogsworth some airtime too.
I told you that I got those, didn't I?
Yeah.
So they're all there. R&B beat me to it, so I didn't do the post like him and DKP and everybody else is with their enchanteds, because I got beat to the punch. But I guess that's what I get for ordering them through eBay when they have their verification service. And so it had to like go. 2 of them literally went from the East Coast, and the PSA verification service is in LA. And so it literally went from East Coast to West Coast to get authenticated like the day they released. And so if there's a counterfeit out there at that point, like, sure, go for it. But anyway, so yeah, I got delayed because of that. But okay, future meta then. So what do we expect? We have our first big local tournament. I guess I didn't talk about my last weekend. I won. We're talking about CCS. We didn't talk about the final boss win a box. Now, did we?
All right, moving on to the next segment.
Yeah, let's just move on from that one. We had a local 6-part, so over half of our local scene went to CCS, and so there were 6 of us left that did. I think we had like
12 people locally that were there. It was like 10 or 12 people locally.
Yeah. I mean, it was over half of our scene for sure.
I mean, that's like a 10-hour drive. Like,
I think it's 12.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it depends on how slow you're driving, but
it's 9.5. I know, or no, it's 8.5 to Nashville from where we are.
Yeah, I know that. So I just yeah, that's fair. So I think Atlanta's another 3. So it's probably good math there.
Boom roasted.
Yeah, it's fine. Yeah. So you were asking how I think this meta's gonna warp in our big tournament coming up. We've got a case tourney in a couple of days, which will have been completed by the time this airs. But yeah, I imagine I was trying to like map out like what I think locally we're gonna see. I think we'll probably see a decent amount of Sapphire Steel because a lot of y'all play that
I
combination.
actually
And
don't think we will. I actually
you
think
think?
it'll
I
be
think
just
4 to 6 people out of like, I think we're gonna have like 25, 30 people at this tournament, and I would say at least 4 to 6.
Okay. Yeah, that's a fair. I would say 4. I would say no more than 4.
So I think we'll have like maybe 4 to 6 Ruby
Yeah.
Sapphires as well.
I agree on that one for sure. I think that
It
there's
really just depends if some of the people that live like an hour or 2 away drive in for this or not, because they're usually the ones on that.
well, and we have a couple people locally that have like been on and off of it, and it just proved itself to be really strong again. And so I think everybody that's on and off of it are very much going to be on it.
Yep. We'll probably have like 1 or 2 hyper aggro, which is always
those.
check the meta. Amber Steel, I feel like we're gonna have more of those, especially considering Zane's success. Though I don't know if he's gonna play it again. I'm curious to see if he wants to change it up or if he'll stick to it and just try to keep pushing his glass slippers on everybody. But I imagine we'll have a good amount of Amber Steel. I honestly, like, I've sent you a few texts. I have no idea what I'm playing. I might try going down the rabbit hole of the Emerald Sapphire just to let Mo kind of have a little bit of reprieve.
I think I lost
risking
you.
his whole
No,
day
you're
playing
back.
the deck. But not sure.
All right, say something.
Uh-oh. We lost him.
Okay,
but we're still on air.
I think I can hear you moving, or I can see
So,
you, but I can't hear you anymore.
Thinking
Maybe
through.
it's just me. I bet you it's still working.
Yeah.
It's picking it up, so we'll just roll with it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay,
You're
no,
back.
it's back. We're good. Okay. I don't know what happened. I actually know what happened. We talked about this the other day. I realized what it is the I have a mini fridge under my desk, and I think it's on the same power strip. All my stuff is on the same power
Amazing.
strip as the mini fridge, and so when the mini fridge kicks on, then it like jolts the power. So yeah. So thank you everyone for listening for dealing with
a nice little monologue. I was like, oh man, I'm out in the shop, and I was like, did the internet lose reception out
it's
here?
definitely my side, and I do need to remember to fix that. But yeah, we have a really diverse meta, and we have a lot of, I would say, very loyal players. I'm interested to see if any of the Ruby Amethyst truers go back to Ruby Amethyst onto some of the new build with the locations, or if they're like, no, this is clearly still kind of a meme or not.
I feel like that's usually like the color combination that has like the most like loyal like players.
Yeah,
if that makes
for
sense.
sure.
Like that people that play that deck usually stick to it. So, though I think a lot of people switched over to Purple Steel for CCS, just as like an adjacent kind of play style.
Feels like it's the most close play style. It's, you have all the purple package, which I actually want to have a conversation on the bounce package at some point. I feel like it finally has had its like it's like sunsetting of its power level.
Well, I think it goes back to that same thing. Like Amethyst was known for drawing, and part of that draw engine was the bounce package, and now Sapphire has a good enough draw engine without needing it. So, like, if you're playing Amethyst, do you run the draw package? One of the decks I might play this weekend is Jafar, because we've got new Steel Jafar. That's kind of like a mini crab.
Yeah.
Not as strong, but I feel like that's fun. And then you don't have to run like a ton of uninkables, because I don't think you need the rabbit if you're running Jafar and Whole New World. And so just something I'm tinkering with, because I just like to play kind of fun decks that are not necessarily.
I'm just gonna ask this question for a funny joke for the viewers. How many decks have you narrowed your choice down to?
I think so. There's 15 different color combinations, and I think I have at least 15 different deck options, which includes the same color combination, different like deck archetypes within it. So
you've narrowed it down to 15 options, is what you're saying.
yeah, I can tell you I will not play Amber Sapphire, so that one can rule that out. I'm not on the puppies just yet. And I'd always gravitate towards Amethyst, because I like drawing, but obviously you've got that option elsewhere. What deck I'm terrible on is Amber Steel. Like it just is not like an organic playstyle for me, and I cannot figure it out. So I don't know. I will probably end up. I'm not going to play Lemon Lime. That's one thing I will say. I'm not going to play Under the Sea. I've always defaulted back to that when I can't decide, because I'm like, okay, like I can just play this deck. It has everything from sets 1 through 4 and nothing really else in it. It's fine. But I'm gonna try jumping out, and that happened in I think it was set 5 when I was just like, I'm just gonna play Purple Steel. Just like, these are fun cards. It's cool. And then like I played in back-to-back set champs, and I literally didn't think the deck was very good, but I still like I beat Mo in the finals on the Sunday tournament. I think I beat you in top cut.
Yeah.
Of the Saturday, and so it was just like, oh well, I guess Purple Steel is good, and that was before it had like the giant Cobra. And you know what card I really like, and I'm trying to figure out how to make it work, is Show Me More.
I don't think you like have to figure out how to make it work. I think it's just decent, right? Like,
I don't know that it's decent, but I just want to play a whole bunch of 1-drops and then like play Show Me More and then just flood the board and just rinse and repeat.
well, we're just gonna show the enchanted version.
Enchanted, yeah.
I mean, I feel like this is. I don't know if this was in the purple, not the emerald amethyst like burn list. I think it was. Although there's the new like emerald amethyst like discard version.
Yeah, the discard list is the one I've seen a bunch of, which is really nice to have. Multiple good Diablo shift options.
I mean, there's 3 now. Cause
I know.
I've seen most people playing the dual ink color one too. So yeah, I mean, 12 Diablo shift options. Basically, you can just mull your entire hand if you're going that hard to go into a Diablo, and know you're going to find a shift option again. So
yeah, it's always tough to play like Diablo into a heavy steel meta, which I think then you have to like follow up with the Ursula Deceiver to kind of snipe the hand and make sure, or even just like the 1-drop like Emerald Diablo that can look at the hand and make sure that Diablo shifting is a safe play. Sometimes though, like you just shift in front of it, even if it's not a safe play, because you'd rather them waste their turn removing it versus like developing whatever their game plan is. It's always such an awkward decision, but I think I've seen situations where it actually makes sense to force their play, because it gets rid of their removal and allows you to follow up with whatever. If you're playing Emerald Steel, you follow up with whatever you want to develop that you don't want them to go after.
That's what I was going to say. It depends on what your follow. If you have a stronger follow up that you don't want them to be able to deal with, then yeah, I mean, getting rid of it makes a ton of sense from your side. But yeah, I mean, anytime you're discarding, it's definitely annoying. And so it's the couple matches I've played against it have been very slow burns, because you don't just sit there and you don't have the luxury to just ink and ramp, because at some point when they rip your hand and you're top decking, you're in trouble at that point. But yeah, I think you can play Show Me More. I don't think there's a lot to figure out. I think you just play it and draw and get lore and call it good. So
I'm trying to think if there's any other like hidden gems of cards. I've seen the Ruby Amethyst deck with a couple of the dual link colors come out, which I don't know if is any good.
probably not. I mean, Takaw's definitely terrible.
Definitely not Taka. That's a rough one.
Hades really isn't that good either, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those cards that it looks really rough on first glance. I couldn't even tell you how it is as a fact.
It's a mill card, which doesn't make sense at all. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
put the top 3 cards of the chosen player's deck onto the top of their discard.
Probably. This one I have seen a few times. The Mother Gothel.
That one, I mean, it's fine, I guess. I mean, it can definitely, give you like a coil-esque type effect if your character's going to live through the challenge to then, like pseudo reduce your opponent's strength. But yeah, I don't know. I think to your point, I think at the very beginning you said, Amethyst was always known as like the best draw engine and the most consistent ways to keep your hands full and to, gather resources. And now there's just plenty of other ways to, accomplish that, while you have, the other benefits of some of those other inks that are better than the rest of the benefits you get from Amethyst. And so
I'm going to put you on the spot here, but since you have Dreamborn open, can you type draw into your search engine and deselect your set 7 filter? I just want to see in purple how many draw cards they have.
Oh, draw in. Okay. Let's look here.
54. Well, some of those are duplicates, just chances and things. But
there's probably, so we'll call it 50 then.
Switch to Sapphire real quick.
mean, it's going to be less, right? Yeah.
It's less. It's 24, but I imagine like the playability of some of those 24, like the percentage of playable cards. So like you think like conversion into top 8, like the conversion of playable cards in these 24 is probably pretty high.
I think the other thing to consider with this is the average number of cards you're drawing off of said draw card. Right?
Yep.
Like if you're, like we'll just take it back to like the ultimate classic draw card on Maleficent from set 1 in Amethyst. It was 3 cost,
Shout out.
2/2 stat line. It was just play draw card. I mean, that's the average cards that is going to draw you is 1. Genie.
Aqua Hulkus. I have to say it. Sorry. This is Duel Masters reference for those that have ever played that game, but it's Aqua Hulkus. Aqua Hulkus. I love that game. It's the same stat line and everything.
Yeah, Genie from from last set that had its massive heyday, the Wish Fulfilled. It's going to be one.
You only own 3 foil genies?
Is that what it said?
Yeah, that's what it says.
I need to up that to 4 then.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and
Thought I was
pull it.
catching you. Oh, jeez.
Yeah,
All right.
that's
Derailed. Embarrassing.
I think the better way to look at it is not the amount of cards, but like the average number of cards you're drawing off of said draw engine. Because like Hiram's going to get you 2 for sure. And in a steel meta, it's probably getting you 4. Popsicle's getting you 1 and costs 1, so that's a massive draw engine. If you're going into some of the other options over there, it's just the consistency and the amount of draw you're getting is a lot higher than a lot of these Amethyst cards. Outside of like Friends and Rabbit, I think it's probably getting you about 1 card per.
Yeah, they're almost all just like cycle themselves.
Yeah.
Is kind of the general. I mean, you have like Finder Keepers, which I played briefly, and you hover over Library for a second there. Like
Library probably the best one, honestly.
Library is such a fun card. The fact that it triggers on your own turn just makes that card super fun to play and creates a lot of headaches when you're trying to figure out your play lines.
All the
yeah, I mean, literally like, most of the deck's just going to cycle itself, which is why I was trying to figure out Hyper Aggro, right? Because like, you can play the 2-drop Cusco Llama, which replaces itself when banished. You have 3 1-drops that all replace themselves effectively, and then you can run the 1-drop Maleficent that quests for 2. You basically have like 30-ish cards that you can play that are all 2 or lower that are going to replace themselves, or put pressure on the opponent while you're drawing. And so the thesis of like the Hyper Aggro right now is like you've got Blue Steel, which is going to be prevalent in pretty much every tournament for the foreseeable future. It has the bell that can come out on turn 1, and it has the ability to sing Storm with that bell. So that's pretty painful against Hyper Aggro. How can you counter that? Like you probably play the Diablo 1-drop that draws a card when it's banished, so that if they are going to like target and remove your 1-drop, like it's at least cycling itself and you're not losing card advantage there. But you have to almost go wide against Blue Steel, and you have to go wide really fast. And I think if something is able to do that to the point where it becomes part of the meta, I think Blue Steel will just add Grab Your Swords and Tinkerbell as like a 1 or 2 of, and kind of manage the Hyper Aggro decks that are going wide.
Well, it positive trades your first 2 turns and then trades evenly into your turn 3 play. And so that's the biggest difference in my mind, is that, like Songs is going to do the same thing. It's just going to, sing and shoot everything and banish all of your, turn 1, 2, 3 plays and then refill. Anything with blue now that has Bell is going to just positively trade your first couple turns and then even trade your turn 3. Ruby's just going to play a bunch of Sisus and banish it all before you can do it. And so I think it's just gotten way, way harder because, your steel matchups that should have been better are now really bad, and Ruby has the ability to play a lot more Baby Sisus because Baby Sisu can banish everything now with the coil. So
the control decks basically have like shored up their like turns 1 through 4, and that's usually where like aggro could kind of race out, and then potentially like control would catch up to them and be able to manage the board. But like your way of winning was turns 1 through 4, and now like your turns 1 through 4 are like, how do I like keep something on the board, which is pretty rough.
You're basically
when all your stuff is like little bitty.
Yeah, you're basically forced into banishing everything, right? Like it used to be play Trinabog's followers don't self-banish until like turn 3, right? Now it's I have to self-banish. I have to play Broom. I have to self-banish. I have to play Diablo and just know that I'm giving up a free trade. And so that is a very hard pill to swallow when you need those to go wide, like you said, because you're just not able to do that.
Which is why I think like the Ruby Amethyst that made top 8, like I don't remember if he had 6 or 8 locations in his list. He might have 4. Honestly, I know Fairy Ship. I saw that, but I don't remember if he had the 2 drop in there as well. But I mean, that's why these locations are kind of popping up, because you think about, like, 4 health. You're basically playing a 1-0-4, but like it's at least sticking.
Yeah, 10 locations.
I didn't think about the libraries. Yeah, I was thinking about the little vanilla locations.
The Forbidden Mountain and the Fairy Ships. Yeah.
Yep. So 6 vanilla locations that are essentially a 0 strength, 4-6 willpower, but they survive Bell.
Yeah.
So like you're giving Bell something to kind of have to deal with early on.
Yeah, I mean, I guess ultimately the game plan here is to just, buy yourself some time to get to 7 with enough cards in hand to then be able to flood after the fact, like they used to. I'm very, like, the Dragonfire in this one's very interesting to me. Like I would just play Lady Tremaine or Madame Medusa myself.
Yeah, unless like they were playing the Enchanted one. I have to figure out. that Enchanted one from the DLC is like probably one of my favorites.
It's a good one for sure. I mean, I would have said that was one of my favorites at first.
Okay. Here comes another humble brag. Yeah.
That's all I thought I could get, and then
Goodness, are we over time? Are we past?
We're definitely over time. We're an hour 15 in now. It's definitely past time, but yeah.
Do you want which one's your favorite? The Rapunzel.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right. Well, I'll take the Let It Go. If you don't want it.
Let It Go is good too. No, I think I'm like I think I'm one of 2 Let It Goes left. I think we had
everyone else Let It Go.
Yeah, actually, I think we had 6 or 7 Let It Goes across the team, and I think there's only 2 left. No, 3 left. I say 2 because Devin and Cody, shout out Devin and Cody, they basically just share their enchantments. I think they both still have one. Wait, no, I think they got rid of one. I think it might just be 2. Anyways, it doesn't matter. I think I'm one of 2 left. So,
do you play with yours, or is it safely stored away?
The DLC ones are non-play. We used to say all the enchantments were non-playable enchantments, and now I just say the DLC ones are non-playable.
All right, Cody, Devin, if you're listening, we got to work on that. Zach can do that. Let It Go.
Elsa's not playable either. Elsa was one of the few that I pulled from a pack, and she's not a playable enchanted. And then the DLC ones, yeah.
That's fair.
Okay. Anything else to end on? What do we? Give me This is going live after the tournament, so give me a prediction for who's gonna win the our local case tourney this weekend.
Oh, the who?
Yeah,
who's going to win?
Give me the who. The actual give me a prediction.
I'm going to go. Shout out Devin.
I could see
he has been playing Blue Steel. I don't think he owns anything besides those 2 colors.
No, he doesn't.
And so, shout out to Devin. Now is the time to shine. Kind of run circles around everybody else who has been pivoting off into other colors while you have been a truther on Sapphire Steel.
I like that. I like that one a lot. We've been talking, me and him, behind the scenes on the Blue Steel stuff. So I don't know what build he's going with, but I've been like trying to push.
I got left out of that conversation.
Yeah,
it feels harsh.
Yeah. Well, you're not a truther. You just said that yourself, and I tried to keep myself in that circle, even though I'm not, and so he's my entry into the circle.
Yeah, you're like, hey, can you catch me up on the last 3 months of playing this stuff? Do you have a 1-drop location that you can play? Neverlands was really fun.
Neverland definitely was worth its weight for sure. But
is it Neverland, not Neverlands?
I don't know. It's actually it's way up there. I can't grab it.
It's fine. It's all good. Let me show off your collection
Neverland.
Again.
You have to have some sort of background. But yeah, there's my my chapter 1 box collection.
Yeah, there's my 2 things that I decorated the wall with this week. What all right, so I'll kind of turn the table back on to you. What do you think? Who/what color combination do you feel is going to win our case tournament?
I want to know what Matt's bringing. Matt's always like the wild card because Matt will either bring like Speedway. And like try to and be like, yeah, I'm gonna make it work and have fun, and then he'll go like, I don't know, like 4 and 2 and like just miss top cut on like crazy Speedway when it's not like optimized at all, or he'll take like green steel in the Bucky days and then just like waylay on everybody. And so I will say Matt, but hesitant to the implication that he's playing something that's like incredibly meta viable. Because if it's just like a fun, like semi meta viable, then I'm going to pull that one back. But yeah.
You hear that, Matt? He has no faith in you. No faith in Speedway.
The only,
I believe in the Speedway.
Here, Matt, I don't know if you remember this or not. I don't know if you listen. I know Kristen does. So, Kristen, you can tell him the story for me. The only time I've ever played Matt is right after the EU DLC, and I can never remember the winners on those ones correctly because I just am not, I guess, cultured enough to be able to remember them. But was after the Ruby Sapphire Queen items package deck one. Yep. We played a tournament right after that, and that's what he played. And I was like lucky enough to beat it because I mean it's obviously a good deck. It won a DLC, but I think it it's also very meta dependent. And I was lucky enough to beat him, and he was kind of on like a not a super meta build of the list that he was normally running. And so I am lucky enough to say that I'm undefeated against Matt.
Wow.
I see I'm jinxing myself so bad.
I haven't. I have not actually beaten him. I've only played him twice, and he's knocked me out of set champs both times. Once I lost out on a Rockstar Stitch, and the other time I lost out on a Ursula playmat. So I haven't talked to him since. But no, I'm kidding.
I should not be. I'm going to jinx myself. So
man,
I should not be saying this.
Yeah, let's keep going. Who else haven't you lost to, Zach?
Who else? I think honestly, I have lost to everybody now.
Yeah.
Aside from
what are you hoping to see? What color combination do you feel like you not necessarily like to see so you can beat it, but like I know you're competitive. Like
I think.
What do you want to see like somebody playing so you can just see how it does in the field?
The Churna Dog. I think somebody will play that for sure because we have like our very like intense competitive group of like 14, 15 people, and then there's usually another 10 to 15 that either travel in or like semi-competitive that are always around for the big tournaments but don't take it like quite as seriously as the team does. I would bet there's somebody in the like secondary, like they aren't involved in everything group that brings the lemon lime puppies.
Yeah, Churnadog. Churnadog would be fun to see, not necessarily fun to play against.
Because it's very scary because it either like if you have the ability to deal with the board early, or if they misplay and like let you challenge into a few things and not let that first tramp get off as quick as it possibly can, then I think it's kind of a runaway. But if it gets going and it has a couple of those big swing turns where you get out a couple free tramps or a couple very low cost tramps, then it gets scary fast because those are big bodies for Steel to deal with. So
I want to see Ruby Steel. That's kind of my wish. I hope somebody's playing it just so I can see it in action. It won't be me.
I think there's a chance for that. Again, I think there's a couple more casual people that play fun stuff, and that definitely falls in the fun category for me, where I could see that happening. We'll have to follow up on this one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, that's it. We'll stop rambling at this point.
Don't buy $100+ strength of Raging Fire. Is my only parting words of wisdom.
We forgot to talk about that.
And if you want to buy them, I have a few, but. Words to the wise, please don't buy cards when they spike up like that.
What he's talking about is so Strength of Raging Fire, the normal printing is currently $18. Oh, it went down. Okay, it went down.
Good.
So we had the
rational thoughts prevailed here.
A bunch of people obviously like listed today because earlier today the cheapest one was listed at $120, and so yeah, there's clearly a bunch of people that saw that and pumped them in. What's the highest actual sale? 35, 35, 36, 35, 36. So it's about a $35 foil. That's crazy still. That's crazy.
That is pretty wild. I wonder, I need to do like maybe we'll do this for part of like the team Discord or something where we kind of show like the value of
we really
should
do that. And like average values of rarity foils.
Exactly. Yeah.
And like how much.
Like what's your EV when you're opening a pack or something. Yeah.
So that you can just do some math on it. But anyways, yeah. Don't buy $100 Strength of Raging Fire foils, even though you might desperately want to.
Can you open up your Dreamborn real quick? I want to see how many you have.
Yeah.
And is
how
that
many?
have like
No,
he actually is the
how
one that
much
bought him out?
I have six non-foils and 4
Okay.
foils.
Okay. Well.
I can't show my Dreamborn collection
Oh right, yeah,
because
you got to log in. Well,
not even
what is
that.
what is your password?
It's not even that. It's the fact that it shows the total value of my collection and how much I've spent
Oh.
on it that I don't want. That doesn't need to be out in the ether because that's just, for all I know, my wife could see it and then she'd be like, "You spent how much on that now? I know you spent a lot, but how much?"
Oh, it's actually a charity game. Yeah, it's just the value. It's all made up. It's not real.
Yeah, it's like fake stocks. You know, we're trading fake stocks up here just as an exercise. Okay, so yeah, good luck to everybody in the case tournament this weekend. Hope this podcast episode sounds a lot better, and we're working out all the kinks. So thanks for everybody for sticking around with us and working through all the problems. But yeah, I think we got a lot of good stuff coming from the podcast and from the team. So
And join the Discord. Leave comments on YouTube. Hopefully my audio sounds better. Whoever said that my audio was bad on YouTube last time.
sounds perfect this time.
Cool.
All right, everyone. Thanks again, and we'll catch y'all next time.